Hey everybody, this is Alex Merced and welcome to another episode of Select Star from Data Lake. And I always like to talk about Data Lake and Data Lake kind of stuff on this show. And today I want to talk about a really cool, um, announcement that Dremio 25.0 is being released. And if you're not familiar with how Dremio works on a release schedule, essentially Dremio has two deployment models. That's the software self-managed version. So that means you would use like the Kubernetes Helm chart and you would deploy this on your own, on a Kubernetes cluster, and then you would periodically update whenever the software is updated. So you'd manage the update cycle and whatnot. So basically, those who are on Dremio 24 would then upgrade to Dremio 25. Now then there's Dremio Cloud, the cloud version, which in this case really isn't versions. Features just get released because all of the actual software is being managed by Dremio. And essentially, Dremio has a really cool way of sort of architecture where basically it has a control plane and a data plane. So essentially, there's a part of Dremio when you're using Dremio Cloud called the coordinator that kind of runs in Dremio's cloud. So in that case, and that generally doesn't touch your data. Generally doesn't. It just kind of basically sends instructions to the clusters running inside your cloud. So basically, that keeps your data within sort of your cloud for privacy and security reasons. So you get the benefit of having a cloud managed platform, but you still get to kind of keep things within sort of your cloud for all the types of privacy and security issues that need to be adhered to when it comes to data platforms. Okay, and there's a lot of really interesting things that will be announced in a couple weeks at Subsurface. And if you haven't registered for the Subsurface conference, head over to dremio.com/subsurface to register. Some additional sort of really cool sort of, hey, how can I make Dremio available to me kind of stuff will be announced there, which I highly encourage to not miss. But so basically, so the features that are in Dremio 25.0 would be available to you by either just using Dremio Cloud. You don't even have to think about the updates; they're just going to happen, or by using by upgrading your self-managed cluster. Now, a couple of things that are being announced here are things like improved ingestion. So basically, Dremio has been really working hard on giving you a lot of ways to ingest data into Apache Iceberg directly from Dremio, and it makes it a lot easier than, let's say, using imperative code with something like a Spark or a Flink, because you can use SQL and you don't have to really configure a bunch of data every time you want to run that SQL. Okay, if you've written Spark, you have to kind of write all this code being, okay, I'm connecting to this database, I'm connecting to that. That is run every time. While with the Dremio cluster, you connect to your sources. Your sources are just connected, and now they're just things that you can refer to in your SQL. So I can connect to a Postgres database, connect to my data lake, and then ingest data into my data lake purely from SQL. And one of the cool SQL commands that Dremio has to help with that, because one thing that people do is that they have JSON and CSV files sitting on their data lake and Parquet files that they would like to read and build an Apache Iceberg table with. And for that, we have a copy into command, which has been around for a while, which allows you to take those files and turn them into an Iceberg table. One of the big benefits is that you could do this before with Dremio, but it would require multiple steps. You'd have to take that JSON CSV file, turn it into, promote it as a table, and then you would have to then do a CTAS, and then you have to kind of manage the schema of that table. It would be a lot of steps. It was doable, but with copy into, I can just have an existing Iceberg table with the right schema, and then so the schema will then be enforced on when you write that data there. So all you have to do is really just say copy these files to that table, and it's done. So there's been some improvements to that copy into command. So now you can skip data files, and there's some other commands there to just kind of make it work in more variety of use cases. On top of that, a while ago there was a Kafka Connect sync that was donated to the Apache Iceberg community. Okay, and Dremio Cloud has its native catalog, which is basically based around a technology called Nessie. So there's been some testing to make sure that the catalog is all functional and works just fine. So basically, Dremio has certified that the connector works with Dremio's native catalog. So basically, you can use that Kafka sync connector to ingest data from your Kafka topics directly into that catalog, so that way they can become available within your Dremio environment. And again, that's not the only catalog that Dremio works with. So in that case, generally, this Kafka connector works with generally pretty much all the Iceberg catalogs and can be used for ingesting data directly in there. Cool. Now, also, basically, there's been a lot of efforts for like improved reliability, stability, and scalability with Dremio. So basically, there's been things like spillable hash joins, a memory arbiter. Now, these are things that you're not probably going to interact with when you're interacting with Dremio software, but these are things that make particularly self-managed clusters much more stable. So that way, there's less likeliness of like a node outage or out of memory issues, whatnot, because it's going to be able to handle any sort of tension of resources much better. So that is a big deal. And basically, there's a couple great articles over there at dremio.com/blog about sort of like the benefits of these features and sort of like just sort of what the findings have been in testing these features and seeing sort of greatly reduced sort of these sort of edge case resource issues. Okay, of course, there's always improvements of performance. Okay, so basically with that, there's Dremio's improvements of performance kind of come in two different levels, where basically there's improvements to just how Dremio processes queries natively, which can come in just sort of basically writing more intelligent ways of processing queries, of doing cost-based optimizations, things like that. So every update has some improvements there. But then the other layer is reflections, which is the query acceleration feature in Dremio. Think of it as sort of wrapping materialized views, BI extracts, indexing all within sort of one feature that you just flip a switch and X, data set is now faster. Essentially, what's one of the things we've been moving towards is making it easier to use reflections. So building reflections are pretty easy. Always the challenge has been to know when to use reflections. So in the last release, we released sort of the reflections recommender, which recommends which reflections to use. But here, there have been enhancements to the incremental refresh capabilities, which means you're going to get smarter reflection refreshes. So when those reflections update, also the ability to schedule reflection refreshes. So that way, basically, they refresh when you know you want them to update. On top of that, basically just other tools that just kind of help keep costs down and queries fast. Also, some basic observability features, so that way you can monitor sort of, hey, what queries are sort of, basically the activity on your cluster, so that way you can better understand sort of where you're spending money and get the best sort of ability to take action to sort of optimize costs and things like that. Okay? And the things that you can even basically also use your own custom metrics using systems like Splunk, Datadog, and more to get even more visibility into there. And we have expanded SQL coverage with some new SQL functions such as arrays overlap, cumulative window framing functions. So lots of really cool new stuff being added to the Dremio world here in 25. Again, there's going to be a bunch more announcements, but those announcements will be made at Subsurface. So if you haven't registered for Subsurface, which is going to be on May 2nd, which you can attend live in New York and get a free book and get to hang out with other data people, okay, head over to dremio.com/subsurface, but it's also going to be online on May 2nd and 3rd, so you can watch it online, still get a free book, and get to enjoy it from the comfort of your own home. But either way, I'll see you all later. This is Alex Merced, and you'll need to select Star from Data Lake, and have a great day.